This is Rise. Let's lock in with the goal of changing one life at a time. Yours. Together, let us rise up, inspire, strengthen, and elevate our minds. It's time to Rise on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, my name is Dr. Saran Heron, and welcome to Rise. Today we're going to be talking with Gerald Leonard, who delivers real-world strategies that can be used with his clients in the industries as diverse as fintech companies, technology companies, multinational corporations, and federal and state governments. His consulting firm, Principles of Executive LLC, he's a certified MBE, as well as strategic project portfolio manager, IT, and culture change consultancy with over 25 years of client work. He brings vast background in music and the principles of managing creative workforce. He holds a bachelor degree in music, which he got from the University of Ohio. He has also earned his master's in music. And prior to his corporate consulting, he worked as a professional in New York City, studying with the late David Walters, a distinguished professional of double bass. He also frequently has musical elements to inspire his audience to contribute to goals, meet critical drivers, and take ownership of outcomes. Mr. Leonard makes his home in Spanish Fort, Alabama, USA. He's here today to share with you how not to bite off more than you can chew, but how to better accomplish your goals daily and rise in your life. Mr. Leonard, welcome to Rise here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that amazing announcement, our introduction. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but I tried my best. That's okay. I'm really happy to be here. So
thank you. Now, you hold several degrees, and I want to talk a little bit about them. You have a PMP, a PfMP, and a C-IQ coach. Talk to me about those degrees and what do they mean for those?
Yeah, those are certifications. So my degrees are in music, bachelor's and master's. Mm-hmm. And I have tons of certifications because I realized after I got out of music and I did a little ministry work in New York and got into IT at a time when if you could spell IT, they would let you in, okay? And so I realized that I didn't really want to go back to school and get another degree, so to speak. And I realized that the certifications, depending on which ones you got, were just as valuable in the eyes of corporate America as an MBA. So I went and in 2005, I think it was, I got the PMP, which is the Project Management Professional, and that's certified by the Project Management Institute. And in 2015, I did the PfMP. And so you actually have to wait for 10 years. Once you have your PMP, you have to wait for 10 years before you can even take the test for the PfMP, because that's at a C-suite level, portfolio management, and that's really working with very large companies. The CIQ is a certification I received from a lady named Judith Glazer. She wrote a book called Conversational Intelligence, and it's about the neuroscience of conversations. And, that all came about after I had a major bout with vertigo, which I'll share with you guys as we go down this list of things to talk about. But there's a number of other things I've done I've taken classes from Harvard. I've taken classes from the Wharton School. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm very curious. Excellent. And I believe in continuing to grow myself and develop. I think one of the things that spurred me on to do that was early in life, I had an opportunity to lead a group, and the group outgrew me, right? So the group grew faster than I was growing myself. And I had to have somebody come in and take over. And that was a little painful experience for me. And I realized that whatever I get into, I have to grow faster than the organization is growing to remain the leader of it, or else it will outgrow me. And I think that's true for everyone. If you're involved in something, you got to make sure you're growing so that what you're building doesn't outgrow you.
I 100% agree with you. And I love the idea that you mentioned that continual learning. It's a lifetime, and a lot of people don't realize
it keeps you young too.
Yes.
Even if you have gray hair.
That's a good thing. Now we're going to talk about, our topic focus is one thing to do to reach your goals. And of course, you're going to share your expertise. But let's talk a little bit about what do you mean by biting more than you can chew for those listening audience?
A lot of times we have goals and we tend to fill up our plates because we don't like silence as human beings, right? And because if we're not processing things properly and we're dealing with, limiting beliefs and things, we try to fill up our schedules with just noise and just activity. And then we realize or feel that we're burning out. And sometimes our body shuts down because we're burning out, or we just, relationships fall apart or things happen to us because we're just, taking on too much. And I think a lot of us take on too much instead of really honing in and saying, okay, there was an exercise I did early in life with Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In one chapter, he said to imagine it's your 85th birthday and you have all your loved ones and friends and colleagues around you, and you kind of write out your birthday party and what people are going to say about you. And, doing that exercise gave me a vision of what I wanted my life to be about. So then if that was the case, then my goals needed to be very narrowly focused on where I'm going. And so it really helped me to start saying no to things because I knew that wasn't what was really important to me. And then there were some other things that happened in life where I had to really learn the secret of how to do more by doing less and by really being focused on my purpose and so on. And so, we can tend to take on too much because we don't like to sit in the silence and process things, because then we get all these negative thoughts. But there's also a way to deal with that as well.
Now, you absolutely believe that, individuals can reach their goal, but obviously one thing at a time. Now, I know you and I have had conversations about reaching your goal, but also kind of who do you become? Talk a little bit about that with me. Yeah.
So one of my pet peeves as I teach goal setting is I really try to get people to understand that the most valuable thing about goal setting, of reaching a goal, and what I would say is the goal, the GOLD, in reaching a goal, GOAL, is who do you become? Right? Because if you can actually accomplish something that you've never become before, guess what? You have to become someone that you've never been before. And once you achieve that thing, whatever that may be, if it's a new home, if it's a career advancement, if it's writing a book, if it's writing a song, whatever that is, once you accomplish it, you have become that kind of person, and which means that you can always do that thing again. And so the real blessing of a goal is to realize it's not so much the accomplishment of this result, but it's who do you have to become to accomplish those goals. And because you have to change the way you think, you have to change your energy, you have to change what you attract into your life. And once you start doing that on a regular basis, you become someone that is now living at a higher level.
Now, you also believe that, in order to achieve one's goal, you need to change your mindset. Talk to me about how critical is mindset.
Mindset is one of the most fundamental things that you have to change. If you think of we just watched the Olympics, and what's the difference between, someone who wins the gold medal and someone who wins the silver and bronze? Sometimes it's a nanosecond, right? Yes. And sometimes it's literally, just sticking your chest out and getting across the line before the other guy does.
Right.
And what is that? How do you get that? Well, that's all about mindset. And it's believing that you can. But if you look at the life of an Olympic athlete, they're at the top of their game. And guess what they all have? They have a coach.
Yes.
They also have teammates who are also Olympic athletes. So they surround themselves with other people who are playing at this higher level. And they manage their day, they manage their activities, they manage their energy, all focused on that overall goal. And because of that, it's constantly taking their mindset upward. And so our mindsets are the way we think about things, but our mindsets can be supported by the people we have in our life, by the environment that we surround ourselves with, by the things that we listen to and take in, and by the way we think. And so it's one of the most critical things. Angela Duckworth wrote a book called Grit. and the essence of being gritty, someone who can handle the tough times and be resilient. She talked about just the whole idea. But one of the things she said in one of her talks, I think it's a TEDx talk she gave, was that the essence or the critical component of being gritty was having a growth mindset, just knowing that no matter what happens, I can grow. You can grow through it. Not just go through it, but really grow through it and become someone better. And once you understand that, then life is never the same.
That's excellent advice. Now, also writing out your goals is something that you believe is very useful, and visualizing them. Talk to me a little bit about that.
That is something that I started doing in earnest in 2020, in February of 2020, after spending some time with a buddy of mine out in Las Vegas. He's a guitarist and a professional speaker. He's performed at Carnegie Hall 10 times, and he was coached by Brian Tracy. And he shared this little bit of this tidbit with me, because I was always someone who would write out my goals or develop goals and have them for the year. Right. But I would kind of write them out and kind of think about them and then put them away.
Right.
And then maybe every once in a while come back and look at them. Right. And that was good, because there was a lot of things I was accomplishing, but it was taking time. And so I started following his advice of just take a small set of goals and every day by hand physically write them out as an affirmation. Right. Instead of just, I want to accomplish this, or I want to buy a new home, it's, I'm so grateful and happy that I have this new home, and so on. And then, that can also bring up some negative beliefs, and you have to address those. Right. But by every day doing that, what starts happening is that you are reprogramming the way your brain works. And here's where the neuroscience come in. There's something that we all have called a reticular activating system. It's a filter. Imagine you have this amazing car you want to buy, and it's red, and you've not seen anybody with that red car. Guess what happens when you go buy the red car? You pull out of the parking lot, you pull out of the lot, and everywhere you see is a red car.
Yeah,
it's like, wait a minute, where did all these red cars come from?
That is so true. It's just like buying a new car. You never see it till you start driving. Everybody has one.
Exactly, and here's why. Because once you own it, or once you've claimed it, your brain says, oh, that's important to them. I need to show them all of those things around this area. So when you're right, so think about that mindset of owning a red car. Now you see all the red cars. Writing out your goal is like owning the red car. When you start writing out your goals, everything related to that goal becomes visible to you. Your brain filters out everything else, all the noise, and starts showing you the people, the books, the resources, the things that you could do, the things that you could learn that's going to help you reach that goal. And so one of the fastest ways to reach your goal is to write it out every day, because you are literally reprogramming and rewiring your brain. You also begin to rewire your unconscious or your non-conscious mind and so that when you go to sleep at night, you start having dreams about this goal coming to fruition. You start attracting the people into your life. Somebody might raise a book, and you have all these amazing things that start happening towards that.
You are listening to Rise on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Saran Heron, and today we're talking about one thing to do to reach your goals. We're talking with Gerald Leonard, who delivers real-world strategies that he uses with his clients in industries as diverse as fintech companies, technology companies, multinational corporation. He has a culture change consultancy with over 25 years of client work. His background is in music. He has a bachelor degree in music. He also has a master's in music. And Leonard frequently includes his musical elements to inspire audience to contribute to goals, meet criteria, and take ownership of outcomes. He makes his home in Spanish Fort, Alabama, USA. He's here to share with us how not to bite off more than you could chew, but how to better accomplish your goals daily and rise in your life. Now, Leonardo, as we have been talking and you're giving some excellent advice, now I want to talk a little bit about your music. How do you contrast your music to things we need to do to accomplish our goals? Explain to us a little bit.
Sure. I started playing when I was 10, and if you could see my video, behind me on my shelf is a little red guitar. That little red guitar used to belong to my sister until I stole it from her. And I was learning how to play the piano, but I didn't like it. And so she had this guitar. I was fascinated with it. So I'd like grab it and go into her closet and play a little bit. And one day she saw me and she was like, "Here, you can have it." And, my sisters would. She let me have it.
Right.
And I started playing and I fell in love with it. And then I wanted to join a band with some friends of mine. And one was an amazing guitar player. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be the guitar player in the band. So I became the bass player. And I started learning everything about bass and how to support the band and grow and so on and so forth. And then I got really serious about it and I bought a bass. I was the youngest of 6 and I bought a bass and I started going to little concerts. Or not really little concerts. They had created what's called the Lakeland Civic Center in Lakeland, Florida. Right. So I started seeing all these amazing bands. And there was 3 things that I started doing. And one was practicing. The second thing was by joining the band. And then also having a teacher, because I realized that as I started learning and working on my own, there was only so far I could go by myself. I got to a point where I was playing pretty well. I could play songs on the radio, but I couldn't go further. And then I found a teacher that started taking my skills to another level. He started showing me things I could do to really grow. And what was interesting is I used those same 3 principles throughout my life. When I got into project management, and started doing consulting as well as playing music on the side and playing, making a living playing music, but also doing the consulting. I thought, okay, well, how do I practice project management? So I figured out how to practice, read the books, learn the tools, practice using the materials and so on. Who could coach me? I found other people who were experts. Nice. I read their books. I had a chance to meet them in person. I started networking with them. And then I joined organizations where I could talk project management with other people who were aficionados around project management. So that became my band. Now, when I became a CEO of a company, I started doing the same thing. I read everything I could about what does a CEO do, what are the critical skills that a CEO needs to have? How do I run my company? How do I think? And I started practicing in those. I then found coaches who were excellent CEO coaches. And then I found groups of other CEOs that I could partner with. I've taken courses from Harvard and leading professional service firms. I've taken courses from the Wharton School in how to be an entrepreneur and how to grow my business. And I surrounded myself and using those same 3 principles I used as a kid playing music, which is you got to practice, you need a coach, and you got to have a band. And here's the thing about coaching. Many of us think at times that coaching is for those who are struggling. But again, I always say, look at the athletes who make the most money in the world. And guess what they all have?
A coach.
They have a coach. Exactly. And so when you really look at it, some of the highest paid CEOs and professionals in the world all have coaches. And the best way I've learned to explain coaching or mentoring is if you live in a large city where there's an HOV lane or a high occupancy lane, during commuting time, I used to live in New York, I used to live in DC. It could take you 2 to 3 hours to get home, depending on what time you left, right? And the traffic is really bad. And if you're sitting in traffic, you know what I mean. You're sitting there by yourself and you're just taking all this time. But imagine if you had someone in the car with you, you could actually get into the high occupancy lane.
And go faster.
You could actually go the speed limit.
Yes.
You could listen to some music. You could even put the car on cruise control and get to your destination so much faster. And really, to me, that became a metaphor for life. That if we just find the right people that could ride along with us, that had all these skills that we could learn from, that we could accomplish so many of our goals in so many of the directions that we're trying to go to so much faster, and it would be so much easier. It's much easier to ride in the HOV lane and go the speed limit and put the car on cruise control than to sit in traffic for 2 hours wondering if I'm going to run out of gas or not.
Very interesting concept. Now, we want to talk a little bit about in 2018 when you suffered from vertigo. So for those who are not familiar with the term, who are not in healthcare, talk to me a little bit about what that is and how essential that was for you in terms of one goal at a time, which is a topic we're talking about, how to do one thing at a time to reach your goals daily.
Right. And as you can hear, like I'm a pretty goal-oriented person most of my life, right?
Okay.
But in 2018, when I had this major bout, I was at a weekend retreat. I jumped in the shower and everything turned upside down. I had to be rushed to the hospital
Wow.
by ambulance. As I'm there, they had to give me something to make the vertigo stop, because vertigo is basically, the inner ear is very complex, and sometimes it can be a crystal, it could be a hair, or it could be something with the vestibular system, which is the balancing system in our bodies that gets off. And mine was the balancing system. What I learned later on was that I had lost 86% capability in my right inner ear.
Wow.
So I had a brain injury. When the doctor came to me after a day and a half of being in the hospital, he looked and says, obviously you got to go see a specialist. This is as much as we can do right now, but we can only let you go home if you could show that you could walk. Could you use this walker to scoot down the hall so we can let you go? So I was able to use a walker to scoot down the hall, but I was not able to walk on my own. And this happened 6 weeks before my TEDx.
Wow.
Now, if you ever go to my website or you ever look up geraldjleonard.tedx, you're going to see that I did a TEDx.
Wow.
And I use the principles of music practicing and also the neuroscience, because as a musician, when you're playing music, your brain is so activated. And if there's damage, the brain begins to look for ways to rewire itself. And so knowing that my TEDx talk was about music and what if practice performance and neuroscience of music, I use these principles to do that. But when I was done, the doctor looked at me and said, you have a disability. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it a constraint.
Right.
Right? Because I'm not disabled. And also because of the conversational intelligence work that I've done, I understand the power of words.
Right.
The words we use about ourselves and the way we talk to ourselves and the way we talk about ourselves, our bodies listen and they will start obeying. So if I kept telling myself, oh, I'm disabled, guess what starts happening? My body starts shutting down.
It begins to manifest itself pretty much.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But because I was constrained, I was limited in how much I could do. Now, remember that what I shared earlier was that in 2020, I had a friend tell me about writing down your goals. So I'm in the process of recovering and learning how to deal with life now with this constraint. And so I didn't have all of the energy of the faculties that I had before with just kind of managing these goals and getting a bunch of stuff done. And so now I'm sitting here going, okay, how do I move forward and keep doing what I'm doing? And that's when I learned all of these little secrets of, the neuroscience of writing out goals, the neuroscience of focus, and managing my energy and managing my mindset, doing yoga to de-stress my body, learning about kinesiology and learning about brain gyms and applying them to business. And what I started seeing was I felt like I was getting in line with the current of life, because I would talk to one of my coaches and I said, I feel like I'm in a canoe gently paddling down the river, and all of these goals that I'm writing out are just starting to come and happen. I went through some major challenges that they all started coming together at that time.
You are listening to Rise on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Saran Heron, and today we're talking about one thing to do to reach your goals. I'm talking with Gerald Leonard, who delivers real-world strategies that he uses with his clients in industries as diverse as fintech companies, technology companies. He has also a consultancy with over 25 years of client work. He has a background in music, hold a bachelor and a master's in music. He also makes his home in Spanish Fort, Alabama, USA. He's here to share with you how not to bite off more than you could chew, but how to better accomplish your goals daily and rise in your life. Now, Gerald, we've been talking a little bit and you're sharing your expert advice, but I want you to share quickly about the culture being the base and why is that important?
Sure. And so, Culture is the Base. It was the first book I wrote back in around 2015, 2016. And I wrote that book because I had been, working as a professional musician and as a business consultant. And I started noticing the similarities between high-performing teams, where high-performing teams in music were like, a quartet or a small ensemble, but a high-performing team in business is a team that is working together. Everyone is really solid on their role, but they also understand the big picture of what the project is to deliver. And because I was living in both worlds, I started seeing the similarities. And I was also starting to do a lot of speaking for some consultancies and some of the things that I was doing. And I met a gentleman, Willie Jolly, and his wife, Dee. And Willie Jolly is one of the top 5 speakers in the world, but he's also a jazz singer. And as they started working with me, they were like, what you do is help companies with their culture, and you're this incredible bass player. It's like, and it was also the time when that song All About That Bass came out. Right, it was really popular.
Right.
And so he's like, man, if you could write a book that compared music and the bass to culture, you'd have $1 million book. You'd be onto something. So I started playing with that idea, and that's where the whole idea of culture is the base, because a company's culture is the feel of the company. And what does a great song have? It has a great bass line, which is the great feel for the music. And so that's how that came about. And after that, I ended up having a literary agent. And again, I had the 2018 situation, but because I had focused my attention on how to prioritize and write out my goals, I then ended up with a literary agent. And my next 2 books were published by major publishers.
Excellent.
And that was Workplace Jazz and A Symphony of Choices.
Now, as we're getting ready to wrap up our show, you have accomplished a lot, and we may not have enough time, or we don't have enough time to talk about everything. But I want you to just tell our listening audience, especially what was your main inspiration behind all that you do, and also I want you to leave one advice with our college students and listening audience today who are listening to the program, ready to reach their goals and make those changes.
So for me, one of the things that was compelling was I always felt like I wanted my life to make a difference in other people's lives. And that's why, after I did my bachelor's and master's, I did ministry for a little bit, and I wanted them to understand that. And so I focused on that, and I focused on, I think one thing that people can focus on is the idea of continuous growth. Thank
you so much, Gerald. And how could individuals get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you?
Sure, they can contact me by going to geraldjleonard.com. And there's forms, there's free resources on there. There's an endorsement by Jack Canfield and Les Brown, a book I'm releasing with him. And if you want to know anything about me, you can go there and get in touch with me.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I gained some valuable things, and I'm sure our listening audience did too. And let us rewire our brains, and remember, the right environment is key to one's accomplishment. Stay blessed until next week, same place, same time, as we learn to continue to rise. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Rise, available wherever you listen to podcasts, and always right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.